and gentlemen, welcome to the American Masterminds podcast. I'm your host today, Topher Sheeler, and making her Masterminds debut, we have the one and only Aiden Jensen, man on the board here today.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And ladies and gentlemen, I have one of my best friends in the entire world with us here this evening. We're going to touch on we're going to go down the rabbit hole is the punchline. We're going to be doing some recap of Clayne's journey into the jungle and curing cancer. And we are going to get to the root of the divine masculinity. I can't wait to get into this. But before we do that, a word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Aiden at Enavive. Are you tired of worrying about what's in your water? Enavive has the solution. From our whole house water purification systems to our fast-filling reverse osmosis units, we can give your family clean, safe water at every tap. Text us now to schedule your consultation and experience water the way it should be, pure.
Well, so catch me up on what are you doing these days?
What am I doing?
Still mortgages?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Financing homes.
Really?
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's going. I mean, the last 2 years has been, we'll just say, a rocky road.
Yeah.
But rocky road ice cream next to some mint chocolate chips, pretty good.
Well, I know that you really don't struggle with this, but has the business actually slowed down?
Yeah. 23 was actually the most difficult. 24 has picked up considerably.
Is that because of interest rates or because people like held off long enough and they still have to do stuff?
Yeah, it's kind of like life still gets on even when the market gets screwed with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we still have a ton of people moving in here.
Yes, an enormous amount of people.
Huh.
So, yeah.
So anything else and going on? What about the shaman and coaching business?
So I've done a little bit with that. In fact, I've held retreats once a month this entire year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, privately.
Where?
At a variety of places, either my house or in a cabin in the woods.
Do you have a cabin in the woods now?
Airbnb cabin.
That'll work?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And any significant stories from that you want to share?
You know, what's really interesting is when it comes to the experiences themselves, I find myself being incredibly private. What I mean by being private is I might share being general with like one of the things that a lot of the feedback that, by the way, are we live right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Oh, no, we're doing the Joe Rogan entrance.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then at the end, that's when we'll do the intro. Because here's what happened. The truth of the matter.
Yeah. I
had a guy on by the name of Bob Silverthorne. Awesome dude. Firefighter. Like the number 2 firefighter in the entire state. Okay. And I thought we were coming on to talk about firefighting. Matter of fact, I thought we were going to talk about like racial relations in firefighting.
Okay.
Turns out he comes on within the first 2 minutes. He tells me how he just got a promotion and he's been going through chemo through this entire promotion and he had to hide it from the fire department. He got a full clean bill of health, but we ended up talking about him and fighting cancer. We didn't talk about anything for the firefighting. I got done, looked at the intro and went, well, that's stupid.
That's awesome.
So I don't know. So we just start talking and you know how this goes. It takes us 4 or 5 minutes to get up and running and where we forget the mics and everything are all on. And then I'll clip it in and we'll do the intro at the end.
Okay. Yeah. What do I want to share with it? Well, I've been privately leading journeys for 4 years on it. And that, of course, you know about that. And then what I've done consistently is once a month this entire year.
But you not sharing, that's kind of new. When we first met, it was still very much new to you. And you kind of had to want to sing it to the world, you know, as one does.
Well, there's a lot of fundamental truth and wisdom that I do. But as far as when it comes right down to the people that are there, the spiritual journey that are there, I find myself being incredibly private about it. And it seems like ever since I got back from the jungle, from when I lived there for 3 months to heal cancer, it just seems like I became even more private.
Well, how are we going to skip right over that? So we went to the jungle for 3 months to cure cancer. Let's pick up on that subject.
Yeah. So
you got all the tests. It's all 100% done.
They will not call it cancer free.
Well, I don't think they ever would.
Yeah. So the last test showed that there is they say that there's still a tumor there, but they're not concerned about it. Their entire protocol is to have surgery and remove the thyroid gland because it was thyroid cancer.
Right.
It was papillary thyroid cancer, and it's considered one of the most slow-moving types of cancer. One of the things they told me was, if we were to wish cancer on somebody, we'd wish this kind on them, on that person. And when I came back from the jungle, the tumor had shrunk, but they didn't say it was all the way gone. What the test showed was my thyroid was functioning 100% normal. And what I discovered is I have not found any evidence that anybody has ever died of papillary thyroid cancer, that version.
I wonder how many, because what are the symptoms?
So what everybody has to realize is thyroid hormone is in every cell of the body. And without thyroid hormone, we would die.
Right.
Yeah. And the thyroid does so many incredible things. One is it's a thermostat of the body, and it sits right here in your voice, in the voice center. And the crazy thing about it is when you have a medical system that as soon as you get some kind of diagnosis, the actual aftermath of it, they can call you, quote, cancer-free. But if you were to not have a thyroid, like I asked my doctor the question, I said, what would happen if this, because then I'd have to be on a pharmaceutical the rest of my entire life. I asked, what would happen if, let's say there was a supply chain issue and I don't have access to that medication that they would have to be on for the rest of my entire life? She said your metabolism would come to a complete halt. You become a very large man and ultimately you die.
What?
And so my sentence was, so they wanted to pull, extricate the thyroid gland, which is a butterfly gland that sits right here.
Yeah.
And be on a pharmaceutical my entire life. And what was crazy is the possible risks that could follow it sounded worse than the cancer itself.
I feel like that's 90% of all of all medications out there.
Yeah.
If you read the small words on any vaccine or anything like that, you're going to find out, no, I don't want anal bleeding. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So it's possible that I am cancer-free. They wanted to do another biopsy. A biopsy is they actually go in with a needle and poke a hole in it. And there's one of the things that going to the jungle not only was a profound experience, which we could get into, but educating myself. There's a book out by the Truth About Cancer. Yeah. I think it's Troy Bollinger, is I believe the name of the author. And it really I have a completely different perspective on cancer than I ever thought of, ever even imagined. Like when a tumor is being developed, it's actually your body is actually doing you a favor. This is contrary to what they even look at cancer as a disease. It's actually not. There's so much about cancer I've discovered along the way.
Please go in.
Since we're going in this direction. Well, what I discovered is when your body, for whatever reason, whether it's environmental toxins, whether it's in your food or whatever the situation is, your body can only expel a certain number of toxins, apparently at a certain time. And so what it literally does when a, quote, tumor is being formed is this is a sac that the body is going in and collecting the toxicity, and they're holding it in a sac and waiting for the body to have the strength to expel it. And when you have a biopsy, you're literally poking a needle in the sac. And what I have found ironic throughout my entire life is I have noticed many people that have really not had bad symptoms, but for one strange reason, once they go see the doctor, the cancer just spreads all through their body and becomes lethal. And the stages of the cancer progress dramatically. Stage 1, 2, 3, 4. And so when I got back from the jungle, I knew I didn't want another biopsy. I knew I didn't want to poke a needle in it because that's when things spread. It can spread to the lymph nodes, and then once it gets to the lymph nodes, it can spread to the rest of the body. And so when the test results came back that everything seemed to be completely isolated and that the tumor had shrunk, I didn't opt to get another biopsy for them to confirm if it was active or not. And so because of that reason, they can't give me a prognosis of you're cancer-free or not. But here's what is interesting. My thyroid hormone functions incredibly normal. I was also diagnosed with prediabetes, and my prediabetes has been completely reversed. And every function in my body, according to my last physical, is functioning 100% normal.
Okay, I got to ask, how? What did you do? So I know a little bit. I know you went to, obviously, the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
You picked up on a diet,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some nuances that you learned down there about that diet from the shamans in the Amazon, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It became layer after layer. You see, I think what I'd like to do is begin with the first layer with, like, what is shamanism? Like, maybe if you're hearing this, it's not the crazy person that storms the Capitol and paints themselves. And
What? You don't have a big buffalo head mask that you want to wear?
Yeah. So, I think I should just describe what shamanism is. And
Yeah, please do.
Because shamans were the original doctors, and they're the medicine men, they're the medicine women. And in the Amazon jungle, what's really interesting is it's the largest plant diversity in the entire, there's more different species of plants, so like 40,000 plus different species of plants. And the world, the natural way to cure cancer or reverse the cancer, 70% of the supplies around the world comes from the jungle.
I was going to say, yeah, but it's like all medicines, right? It's like 70% of all medicines come from the Amazon.
So there's more to this. So I've had this conversation with my doctor about pharmaceutical companies. So what pharmaceutical companies do is they'll find a plant that actually does do some kind of healing. And what they'll do is they'll harvest that plant, they'll take it into the lab, and they'll make attempts to synthesize the plant in the lab, because you cannot patent a plant.
Right.
It was a lawsuit that was brought before the Supreme Court in 1969, and they tried to patent psilocybin, actually, and that got shut down. And then there was this whole war against, psychedelics that happened.
Right.
That happened in the 1970s. So what they literally do is they try to synthesize a certain molecule that reverses certain things in the plants, and they put their own spin on it. They might add certain ingredients to it, and the base ingredient that they like to use is petroleum. Like, a lot of people don't realize that to synthesize a pharmaceutical is petroleum. And what on earth is petroleum? Petroleum is gasoline.
Yes.
It's oil. I mean, and so what's crazy is when you get a prescription from your doctor, you have, these are the benefits, but then you have to counteract it with all these other ailments that you're going to get. It's because of the toxicity that's inside the synthesized version of all the pharmaceutical drugs.
Well, and they generally have to change a molecule or two to make it, and that now you're messing with God. Just leads to problems.
Yeah, absolutely. So we could just go straight to nature. And so I went straight to the original doctors. Like, these shamans have been working, their tribe, it's been handed down for thousands of years. And so I felt like that, like, society as it's built is not natural. It's a synthetic. There's so much I could say. Just in that one little sentence. But so I want to go completely off grid, go into the jungle, and work with the shamans. There's an enormous amount that I learned and gained, and I could, write a book on that experience.
Well, why don't you give us the bullet points, headlines here?
The bullet point. The first one is the diet.
Because this was a really big one to me when you first told me about it. Yet you went down to the shaman with our lack of understanding shamanism and these medicine doctors that you're speaking of. You would naturally think with our culture that they're going to be very much into vegan and, not harming the animals or anything, but it was quite the opposite, wasn't it?
It was actually pretty profound. I've yet to meet a vegan shaman. Now, there's so much I can say about plants. And so in the Amazon jungle, there's the Amazon River. The Amazon River is the largest river in the world. And not only is there all these plants, it's also the home of a massive amount of wildlife as well. Well, in the jungle, they eat a lot of fish. That is like, they have these ocean liner fisher boats that go out every morning. That are like the same size of boats that they're ships that you'd go out with in the ocean. And so you have these ocean ships in a river, and every day they would, have tons and tons of fish, from anywhere from small fish to fish that are the size of a wheelbarrow.
What?
Yeah.
From the Amazon River?
From the Amazon River. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention piranhas and alligators that live in there, and pink dolphins.
Wait, what? Pink dolphins?
Oh, yeah.
That's a thing?
Oh, absolutely.
You laugh like you knew about that. Do you know about the pink dolphins?
No.
They're pink because there's no salt, and the salt that's in the ocean is what changed the pigment. And so without the absence of the salt, the dolphins are actually naturally pink.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
No way.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So
there you go, Aiden. I told you we were going to learn something on this podcast.
Pink dolphins.
Pink dolphins.
Yeah. So while I was there for 3 months, I spent many hours on the Amazon River.
Huh.
Yeah. Just sightseeing and, checking out the fisher markets, and yeah, had an incredible time that we could underscore that and say that's an understatement. The other thing about you were talking about the diet. They would eat a lot of fish and a lot of chicken, and it was supplemented with other like fruits and vegetables. And looking back on it, I didn't know anything about the ketogenic diet, but it was a modified version of keto. There's a few things that by the keto standards, it doesn't necessarily, like beans, for example.
Yeah.
Like beans and rice. They do a lot of beans and rice. But it was really profound to see how much meat they did eat. And
well, and you were actually prescribed meat by the shamans, right? When they sat down and they kind of brought you in and said, "All right, here's where we're gonna start."
There were times when I was primarily carnivore.
Yeah.
Like there were times when my only meals for the day was fish, chicken, and maybe a plantain.
And that's directly from the shamans telling you how we're going to fix this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you brought that back and kind of took it to a different level.
Yeah, exactly. They removed carbs. Like there's no carbs, sugar. There was a period where there was no carbs, no sugar. I mean, the whole time there's no sugar, actually. They don't serve. I had a birthday while I was there, so they gave me an exception on that. They had a big old cake. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
But that's one of the things.
Aside from that, yeah.
Sugar feeds cancer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fermentable fuel that the cancer loves to eat.
Huh.
Yeah. So there's so much. There's so much to unpack just in that.
And then we're working here at Innovive and we're talking about all the stuff that's in the water. And the punchline to all of these toxins and whatnot that is floating around in our water is cancer. So where do you actually think it came from?
You know what is really interesting is Camp Williams does a lot of bomb testing. And what's really peculiar is Utah is actually the highest per capita for thyroid cancer. And the reason where I'm going with this is when I was first diagnosed, one of the first questions that my doctor asked me, she said, "Have you been exposed to high levels of radiation?" Like, other than my cell phone, I
don't think so.
I don't think so. But apparently, Utah has a high per capita, and there are two reasons why I think that is the case. One is we have a lot of radiation that happens through the bomb testing. That's one. The other thing is from an energetics perspective, whenever since I was a kid, given the religion that I grew up in, there's an attack on your voice. And one of the first things the shaman said to me is they asked me if I've experienced voicelessness throughout my life. And I published my first book coming out of that, going into it, and I dedicated it to the voiceless long before my diagnosis of cancer.
I forgot all about that. You did.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Just got goosebumps. Go ahead. Continue.
Yeah. So that's all part of it. So there's a whole energetic side of it. So I really believe what's unique to Utah is there's a culture here that shuts down your voice, and there is a focus on authority and church versus a focus on truth. And so this entire path for me, we can talk about cancer, we can talk about shamans. What it really boils down to is it was the path to truth. Not truth as my truth or your truth, but fundamental reality. And fundamental reality is discovering that every species of animal that exists in the world has a specific diet that is optimal for that species. And just take pause for just a moment. Think about that. There are things that we'll feed our dogs and cats. Like, there are things we won't feed to our dogs and our cats, our pets, because it's like the chronic,
chocolate and grapes.
the chronic ailments that comes when you feed them what they call table scraps.
Yeah.
Food that you and I are eating. And so what we have systematically seen in the United States is, in our world of creativity, you go to the grocery store, and 90% of the grocery store are processed goods in a form that is not optimal for human health. And so my entire quest has been unwinding all of it, unwinding what is spirituality, what is religion, like all the things. I was born into this culture, and I really believe that my cancer was a symptom of the entire package that I was born into. And so going to the jungle, I got to explore all that. I got to explore the diet part. I got to explore the spiritual aspect through their sacred ceremonies. Some of them are referred to as like ayahuasca ceremonies. What's really interesting is the way plants are viewed is so incredibly different. Like, plants are wise, they're sentient. And the shamans, you think there's a lot of people that, think vegan path is a better way because it's more compassionate, but it's just that you can't hear your carrot screaming when you pull it out of the ground. And they can actually test that there's actually that same level of resistance of when you're grabbing a wild animal to when a predator is taking it. There's actually, you could even look it up on YouTube, of what's happening to plants. There's a book I read called The Secret Life of Plants. It was actually published in 1972, by the way. So they've known this for a very long time.
Yeah.
That plants have feelings too.
Well, and they communicate with each other.
And they communicate with each other as well. Mm-hmm.
That's wild. And they also, so when you do that, you pluck one or whatever, they give off oxalates. They're actually trying to poison or deter the animal trying to pick it, right?
Yeah, what's really fascinating is most people in the vegan community, because I was vegan, I thought vegan was the path, and I was vegan for a period. And the reason why some plants are edible and some, I'll just put in air quotes, edible, and some plants are not edible, is the level of oxalates or other poisons. And so the poisons are to ward off a predator from eating it. And they're even in vegetables, there are these things called oxalates, which is this fine crystal that goes into your gut, and we have an epidemic problem of leaky gut syndrome.
Right.
Yeah. And this is the plant's way to say, hey, I don't really want to be eaten. Now, our body can actually handle a certain level of oxalates. It's not, and so the human species has been able to adapt throughout the millennia.
Sure.
And so one of the things I think is part of our survival is we've been able to eat some plants. Like, just to give you an idea of how oxalates are dangerous, if a lion who is a carnivore were to eat oxalates, their system is so geared towards just one way of eating that they could get sick and ultimately die. Like, if you go to the zoo, when you go to the zoo, you have the big signs that say, don't feed the animals.
Right.
Why do you not feed the animals?
Because it'll kill them if they throw the wrong thing over.
Exactly. But somewhere along the lines, as human beings, we think we can eat anything and get away with it.
And see, and I think that's gluttony at the highest form. In my mind, like,
gluttony is one aspect of it.
Well,
another thing is just not giving your body the nutrients that it does need.
That's fair. Yeah.
I just barely closed. I'll tell you something that was, I think is personally really sad. I just closed a mortgage yesterday for uh, a doctor who works at Primary Children's, and I had a conversation with her about she works with in the endocrinology, and so she works with diabetes for children. I says, "Isn't it on the rise?" He goes, "Oh yeah." I said, "What do you think it is?" He goes, "We don't know. It's like some kind of virus or something like that."
I can give you three. It's
Yeah.
either seed oils, sugar, or the vaccines. Pick one.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the irony of it is I know this particular doctor, her heart's in the right place as far as she wants to do the right thing, but this system, the medical system doesn't train them. And I really believe it's the influence of pharmaceutical companies.
I think that it's indisputable. I
Yeah.
really do. You know,
Yeah.
to circle back, you said, you know, each animal has like a preferred food that they would eat, and that's what serves them, right?
Absolutely.
The big animals
Mhm.
that eat the grass and leaves and whatnot, they have 4 stomachs to digest.
A cow, for example.
A cow, for example.
We don't have the ability to digest fiber.
Right.
And so to have a cow, I grew up on a farm and we had cows, and digesting fiber is far more complex than is talked about. And we eat plants like these plants are, we look at plants like they're these kumbaya, they just can't wait to be eaten by you type of a thing.
Right.
And the truth is the reason why you're excreting in your bowels, that's the reason they call it waste. And I know I have talked to doctors that have tried to argue, doctors that are in med school that are like, you need that fiber for your gut microbiome. And everything that I've done, and like there's many people that have been on the carnivore diet for decades, and you don't, the reason why you're excreting is because that's waste, that your body doesn't know what to digest it. When you eat a carnivore based diet, your body knows how to, uses approximately 98% of it, and even your bowel movements go down to almost zero.
Yeah.
Because your body, it's what your body wants.
You can just look at people. You look at Google vegan versus carnivore,
Mhm.
right? And you can look in their eyes.
Mhm.
You can clearly tell that they're better fueled.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Without question.
I don't know what the big demonization is of meat or plant or animal-based products. Like I just found this out the other day. McDonald's. Do you know when McDonald's opened for like the first 10 years, their fries were cooked in tallow?
That wouldn't surprise me, actually.
We were all on tallow. That's
Yeah.
what we used, all animal fats.
Yeah.
To put this together, you know, all the food that we ate, and people ate steak and potatoes for dinner, and nobody was fat.
Mm-hmm. You know, you could go down a conspiracy theorist route. We could, that's very easy to do. I don't necessarily look at it so much that way. I look at it from the level of corruption and profit. And I'm not against profit at all. I really believe it's greed and outright corruption. And so my path has been truth. And you can't talk about food without talking about medicine and without going down the rabbit hole of corruption. And so I think it's worth noting. It seems that systematically, everything that gives the sovereign power to the individual there has been a warfare happening for many years. I mean, I wasn't around in the 60s and the 70s, but there has been a warfare that diminishes the power of the human being. And one of the ways that it is done is through the food.
Yeah.
And so the war on meat and the war on eggs and all of this is it gives you such fundamental strength that you wouldn't need the doctors, you wouldn't need the pharmaceutical companies. And I know this is provocative to say, and people hearing this might be like, who the hell does Clayne Wayman think he is to say that? You don't need to take my word for it. You can do your own research.
Yeah.
And the thing is about truth, and I'll make this fundamental, I think this is so fundamental, is truth isn't something you believe. Truth is something you discover. And if I want to con you, what is the last thing a con man would want you to do? The last thing a con man would want you to do is to discover. The con man holds you in belief. And I know this can be really controversial because there's so many religions and faith that say, oh, what about faith? I don't see faith as the same thing as belief. Faith is actually trust. So faith is the discovering of truth and trusting it. Because faith is the state of total trust. And so it's fundamentally different. And so the reason why I'm bringing that fundamental reality in is this is not about my belief, my opinion. Do your own research.
Yeah.
The media, everything that we have is not to support you in your sovereign power, your power as an individual. And our forefathers understood where the power lives, and we have been systematically destroyed all the way from the food, pharmaceuticals. I mean, we could go into government politics. We don't even need to go into that direction. I'm not going to.
Well, but I'm glad you went there for one quick thing. Do you think it's the pharmaceutical companies, or do you think that it's control? Because by the same token, the foods that you're talking about, the power, brain function, health, okay, if they attack that, sheep are easy to control.
So do you think it's easier to control?
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
do you think it's more of a political problem, or do you think it's more of a pharmaceutical problem where they want us sick?
Well, there's the profit aspect of it. There are also really corrupt people in high places that see the human beings as cockroaches that need to be expelled from the earth in the name of overpopulation, type of a thing.
Big shout out to old Bill. Yep, appreciate it.
And the systematic approach of destroying the sovereign power of the individual can be seen in many ways. And one of it is, one thing I've been talking about is masculinity.
Let's dive into that.
Because we're talking about truth here.
Yeah.
And it's all connected.
Well, that I do believe in. I really do.
Yeah.
But there is a blatant attack on masculinity right now.
Yes.
And it's been absolutely bastardized as to what that word means.
Yeah. So before you really talk about masculinity or anything, you have to have a really good relationship with truth.
Yeah.
And if you don't have, I would say that a lot of people, I'd say most people don't even really know what truth is, because truth gives you real strength, real power. Yeah. So when I'm talking about masculinity, when I talk about truth, I'm talking about the water, the river runs naturally downhill.
Okay.
It's not my belief. It's not my opinion. Right. So when I'm talking about masculinity, we're talking about an energy that has a certain flow, a certain essence about it. The same with the feminine energy.
Right.
There's a certain flow with it that's not my opinion, and it's not a concept. It's a reality that you get to just go look at. You get to go look to see that the river runs downhill, and it does it this way. And it's not my concept. It's not your concept. It's not my belief, your belief. The river naturally runs downhill with gravity. So masculinity, it's this essence that all of us have an aspect of that within us, whether you take the form of a woman or a man or whatnot. But when you are born in a more masculine body, you tend to have, life has created a vessel that you can express more strongly in that particular direction. And so what I see is masculinity is the strength that can stand in the face of corruption. And if you want to control a society, you control the narrative. And one of the ways they control the masculinity, or try to paint it in such a dark way, is this systematic approach of it's a bad thing and toxic masculinity. It's been going on for decades. It's been happening my entire life. And it's to make you a slave. What people don't realize is slavery never really ended. It's not about skin color anymore.
It's about the masses.
About the masses. And this is a way. And this is a way. I mean, these hurricanes that just hit back east, where they, if you needed somebody to come help you out of the river, are you out looking for the transgender guy that's waving his rainbow flag? And I love rainbows. But that's after a nice rainstorm.
Yeah. Everything has its place.
Yeah. And when I say this, this isn't to give hate to anybody that swings a certain direction in their sexual expression, because everybody has that capacity. But my point is, there's an obvious attack on what is strong.
Mm-hmm.
The feminine nature wants to naturally submit to a strong, I should say, surrender to a masculine that a masculine is a provider, a protector. They are leaders. They are builders of societies. There are things that the masculine can do that the feminine just can't do, and vice versa. This is really provocative to say. Equality, this whole thing around equality is an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
I will never, ever be equal to the capacity that a woman has. And this doesn't make me less as a masculine.
It takes both sides.
It's a symbiotic.
It's a
symbiotic relationship.
Right.
And so when you insult the masculine, and then spiritual communities might refer to it as divine masculine or divine feminine. I actually like that.
Yeah,
terminology,
I agree.
because it puts it at the highest aim.
Right.
So when I'm talking about masculinity, I'm putting it masculinity in its highest form, and when I'm talking about femininity. How do you say that?
Femininity?
Feminine, yeah.
Gotta say it fast. Femininity.
Femininity, yeah. Femininity. Yes. At its highest form. And so the attack that strips you of your power is to attack you at your most fundamental level. And everything in creation, energy is its fundamental level. And so masculinity, the feminine energy, that's the fundamental essence of creation.
Yeah.
And the ancients knew this. Like the ancient Taoists, they have the yin and yang symbol that represents the masculine.
The symbiotic.
Yep. And then in the Hindu culture, you have Shiva and Shakti that represents the masculine and feminine dance. And then in Christianity, you have the Divine Mother, and you have the Holy Mother, and then you have the Holy Father.
Right.
And so it's the same. It's a polarity. And so there's just an attack to destroy those things, and for whatever reason
and the attack
makes you
it's
weaker.
a sinister attack.
Yeah,
it really is, because to me, masculinity. Okay, what's the first tenet of masculinity? You actually said it 3 times. It's protection.
It's protection. There's the other thing that I would like to mention. It's a strong relationship with truth.
And the logic side.
Well, I'll even go a little further.
Okay.
It's a relationship with nobility.
Duty.
So there is a noble aspect.
And honor.
There's a noble, this is the highest possible, when I talk about the highest possible aim.
The divine masculine.
The divine masculine. When you look to nobility will teach you, speaking metaphorically, if you should sheathe your sword, or if you should unsheathe it and wield it. And I think the wisdom of nobility will direct a masculine to do that. And what I'm getting at is, when corruption becomes at a certain level, speaking like I'm speaking right now can be a form of unsheathing the sword. That needs to happen. That more men need to stand up and say those things. And the thing is with me is, I would say I'm very much in touch with both of those aspects of me. But I think that's also part of being a divine masculine, is being deeply connected in with that. And your nobility will guide you if it's time to speak softly, or if it's time to scream like a lion.
And see, I'm of the opinion right now we're at a crossroads. I think that they have pushed this as far and to a point where it's time to start standing up.
Absolutely.
Like, enough is enough. We need to get back to the core divine masculinity that you speak of.
Yeah.
Because also, along with that, you want to talk about mental health? This confusion, I believe, is
confusion,
especially for guys.
Yeah.
It's very big. When you don't know what you're doing, what your tenets are, where you stand, what your mission is, then you become lost.
I heard a crazy statistic that said the highest level of suicide is in white males between the ages of 30 and 45.
Really? I actually believe that on Monday specifically.
Probably Monday morning.
Monday mornings.
Yep. So what happens when men aren't standing in their masculinity, then the women around them have to stand, there has to be an equilibrium there. And so the women have to stand in their masculine role, and we see that. And there's a lot of things that we could discuss around that area. I think relationships are at the highest level of where they could, the enrichment of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think when somebody stands strongly in their poles of masculine and feminine, that's another whole area we could go into. But where I see it is we have to come to a place where we have a strong relationship with truth.
Mm.
And that's where our nobility lives, and be willing to be guided with it. One thing I've been talking a lot about in my retreats, in my spiritual circles, is listening to your inner master.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Describe that.
Isn't it interesting that everything in life has a guidance within it?
Yes.
Dogs, cats, you could name the animal. But we're one of the most advanced life forms on earth, and yet we need to give it over to a church or a religion or to somebody outside of us incessantly. There's actually that we're not separate from our creation. It lives within us. And when you come to truth, you can go within yourself and find it. And that, to me, is what the ultimate noble voice is that you tap into, is the noble voice. When you allow yourself as a man to surrender to what that is within you, and you can discover that with meditation, it's a going within,
Mm-hmm.
and that master, that guide, can guide you in your life. And it's not just a concept; it's a fundamental reality. And it's not. You also, when you have a strong relationship with truth, you allow yourself to discover how you are manipulated by outside stimuli. How you're manipulated by your bag of Doritos, how you're manipulated by your sports, how you're manipulated by the scrolling of Instagram and Facebook and you name your social media platform, how you're stimulated. Like here is a big one, and since we're talking about masculinity, is pornography even.
Yeah.
I'm not part of any religion that. So when I talk about pornography, I'm not talking about it from the lens of this is good or this is bad. Purely from a man's perspective, it robs us of a few things, and I'm gonna tell you what it
Please
is.
go in.
This is a systematic approach that destroys masculinity, and I'll tell you how it does it. It gives men the illusion that they have access to beautiful naked women at any time. Think of that from an evolutionary standpoint. Because of that, they lose their ability to enhance or advance themselves to become a high-value man themselves.
Oh, Clayne. I love it. Keep going.
Okay?
Yeah.
The other thing that it does is it robs them of their vital essence. Nature made us for a masculine to be with women.
Mm-hmm.
And when a man is masturbating to a screen, he is disconnected from his noble aspect. He's living in the delusion of what he could develop and become as himself. And instead of we'll just call it masturbating to the screen, he could be reading a book, he could be listening to a podcast, he could be developing himself, he could be at the gym. Instead, we live in a society where young men are playing video games,
Mm-hmm.
they're watching sports, all these things that distract them from what their true nature and their true purpose was meant to be. And so the sports, the video games, and porn are all the things that rob men from developing into a powerful divine masculine.
Man, that has put some perspective on it. They're 100% right. That's very interesting, because what you're actually saying, and this is the quote unquote weak men now, right? If you don't have, what is the actual driving force to guys?
Yes.
To meet beautiful women. That's as old as time. And if you're not trying to be the man and leveling up, if there's many ways to accomplish that. Sorry, Aiden, we're gonna go a little deep here, okay?
I'll forgive you.
Yeah.
But that is, whether it's money, whether it's your intelligence, your humor, whatever your thing is, and diving into that, what is the ultimate driving factor to that?
I'll tell you what, a woman that is surrendered to her feminine nature wants a high value man.
That's the 6 foot, 100, six-figure guy.
I'm not.
That's
talking,
100%. You're 100%
yeah,
right.
I'm not talking about necessarily the.
No, because it doesn't have to be that.
It doesn't have to be 6 feet tall.
No.
Yeah. And
but they want beautiful women do want you to bring something to the table.
And so when a masculinity is attacked, a man is now standing in his very sissy little nature. He's not developing himself. I don't know of anybody other than the streamers on YouTube that play video games and get paid for it.
Yeah. Very small number.
Very small number.
Small number.
I don't see any benefit of wasting your days in hours and hours of video games, and so it robs a young man of their vital essence. It robs them of their ability to grow themselves into a high value person.
It also synthesizes the hill to charge.
And so it's all connected. So how can pharmaceutical companies get away with what they get away with? How can the food industry get away with it? Well, the men, they're sissies.
Hold on. Excuse me 1 second.
Someone's in trouble.
What's going on? Oh, upside. Oh, yeah.
They're directly up above us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this isn't to put them down or put anybody down and say you're bad or whatnot. It's just simply saying you're being robbed of what you're capable of, your capacity. And so you've got to come to truth with it. And these things that I'm talking about are addictions.
Mm-hmm.
The bag of Doritos, the video games, the pornography, the sports. These are all vices that pull us away from our natural born magnificence.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm about. So when I host a retreat, my retreats are to allow people to come and discover their true nature. The true nature of a man is their noble masculinity, and I see the true nature of a woman as their divine feminine self. I've had a lot of discussions around this, and you have to have a great relationship with truth. And I think one of the most incredible things that somebody can ever do is to surrender to their true nature. And it's one of the ways I see that religion has, if you will, put the cloak over people's eyes, is they say that the natural man is an enemy to God. That's a big narrative that's really peddled. And that's the opposite is true, because what you're effectively saying is the unnatural man is actually the friend, is what you're subliminally saying.
Yeah.
So we could go into that.
No, I don't even know how to find the words for this. The interesting part to me, and the part that I care a lot about, especially with guys our age, okay, mm-hmm. they are by and large miserable. Yeah. And the reason that they're miserable is the same. It's the disconnect of what you're talking about. what is perceived as masculinity versus what is masculinity. And that disconnect in between is actually where the struggle lies.
Yeah.
And for guys, and I cannot speak to girls in the same breath, okay? But for guys, the duty, I say honor, not the nobility, but honor, okay?
Which is the
same territory of what we're talking about. When you get into that, and when you get into doing hard things, all right, and that hill to charge, that's where guys actually become happy. You want to get somebody out of a mental stupor? This is how you do it.
If you're a man listening to this, and if you're a woman who has a man that's depressed, send this message to him, because I'm going to share something here. If you're a man who's depressed, your life has brought you to this place. You're probably depressed for a good reason. And we live in a world that medicates you in your weakness. We live in a world that nurtures you in your little petty little weakness. And here, when you are sitting on the couch, when you are up to hours into the night, and your circadian rhythm is completely off because your sleep cycle's off, you're eating Doritos, you're eating all this shit, you're supposed to feel like shit. You don't need, life built these mechanisms within you to feel like shit.
Yeah. And
if you're depressed, you probably need to do is you probably need to have a good drink of water. You probably need to well hydrate yourself. You probably need to go eat a ribeye steak. And then notice what your sleep cycle is. And then connect with a consistent sleep cycle. And I bet you 70% of depression goes away with just that.
How about add one more? Go out and touch some grass.
Go and touch some grass. Yeah.
Get outside. See the sun a little bit.
We've forgotten, because we're so advanced, I'll put in air quotes, advanced, that we forgot that we're still an animal.
Yeah.
Our bodies are animal bodies. We're part of Earth. We're an aspect of Earth. We are Earth. We're not separate from it. And I think one of the biggest delusions that religion has brought, and when I say this, a lot of people take it like I'm just smashing religion and Clayne hates religion. I'll say something pro about it in a minute to prove my point.
Okay. Because I want to go down the religion path. I've got something for you that I want to. I want to rest on your brain raisin there.
Okay. What was I saying before that? I was going down a path.
You were saying religion was, you have a good thing for religion, but before we get there, you wanted to hit on something.
Yeah, where it's a really negative.
Yeah,
disconnects us from Earth.
Yes, that's it. We treat the Earth like it's something that is our dominion to be tamed, not recognizing that we were birthed from her. We came out of the womb of the Earth. And we're not separate from her.
I think that's the whole point of all of it.
Yeah.
We're not separate from any of this.
And what's really crazy is you even have the narrative in the Bible that the woman came out of the man's rib. And that's treated like it's a literal thing that happened, because it's God. So God can violate natural laws, right? He made them, right? That's what the narrative is. The truth is, man came out of woman. And we have a society that runs around pretending that men are above women. And how can you say you're above them when you came out of their womb? And we came out of the womb of the woman. We came out of the womb of the mother Earth. And I think that's where and so when you talk about getting a strong relationship with truth, I'm not saying it's a strong relationship with what narrative your church peddles, not some narrative that anybody peddles. I'm talking about a relationship with how things are naturally. I'll give you a good example using a religious narrative. You've probably heard the story from the Bible of the Tower of Babel. Okay. I've been talking about this to a lot of people lately.
Okay, hit me with it.
So the story and it's all connected, and I'll get into some pros. So this will be my last bash of religion, and then I'll get into some
I'm going to
pros.
go right back to it, so go ahead.
Okay. Then I'll get into some things that I think are positive. The story of the Tower of Babel. The Bible is riddled with allegorical stories. Allegory is a way to share a story that has hidden truth and hidden meaning in the story. It allows your mind to transcend just the five senses and be able to see a hidden teaching inside that. And I really feel there's some people that see that the story of the Tower of Babel, or they might pronounce the Tower of Babel.
Right.
I like Babel better, so
You would. Yeah. Sounds a little
cooler. Yeah. What's Babylon? So the story of the Tower of Babel. There's actually a hidden meaning in here that just hit me one day. Just a big epiphany that I think is profound that we could take with us.
Okay.
So the story goes like this. This society, they built this great big tower to get to God. And ultimately how the story goes, they were trying to get to God by building this incredible construct, okay, this great tower. And then as the story goes, the language was confused and the building stopped because of the multiple languages. And ultimately the tower was destroyed.
Right.
So here's the hidden meaning that I see. Language, just like you and I right now, is a tool of the experiencer. Language is not fundamental reality. Here's where it's connected to the Tower of Babel.
Okay.
Language is a construct of man. It's a tool like your lawnmower.
Okay. I'll follow.
Okay. Language is the first artificial intelligence.
How do you just square that one away?
Water. Right here.
The best water, by the way. You're welcome.
I'm going to write this word right here, water, on my paper. If you're thirsty, what would you prefer? Would you like me to give you this word, or would you like me to give you
the actual water?
The actual water.
The actual water.
Yeah. So when I use a word, this is real information. When I use a word, I've personified information.
Oh, okay. I understand that.
So I am using artificial information to convey an idea to you through a construct that we invented. This water is not a concept. It's a fundamental reality.
Right.
Words are concepts. We created this.
Oh, that's powerful stuff. Okay.
So what the story of the Tower of Babel points to is that you cannot get to God through a construct.
Wow. Now hold on a second. Okay.
So when you have religion that says you have to know God, you need to go read the word, you're effectively saying, go read the fucking construct. Go to the Tower of Babel of language to know God. And the Tower of Babel story says you fucking can't go there.
Oh, okay. So this ties directly into where I was going to take this. I have a new outlook on religion.
Okay, let's hear
it. You ready for this?
Okay.
What do you know about Lucifer? The angel.
Okay. I can give you the religion version, then I can tell you where I sit with it right now.
Okay.
Which version you want?
Well, I'd like to hear both. Okay. Wait, hold on. Before you go there, because this is going to be my control here. Aiden, what do you know of Lucifer?
He's bad. That's all.
Is your only construct of him as hellfire, damnation, horns?
Yeah, when I think of Lucifer, I think of darkness and evil.
Yeah.
Bad.
Okay.
So tell me which path you want me to go down with Lucifer.
Hold on, I want to set a couple of things first.
Because I love this.
This is going to get fun here, okay? Aiden.
Yeah.
Do you know what Lucifer's tagline is?
Son of the morning?
That morning, yeah. But also he's known as the...
my mind always goes to deceiver.
He's known as the bringer of light. That's his actual tagline. Okay.
Why have I never heard that?
I think we're about to get into some truth right here. Okay. All right, Clayne. You've got two, your side and then the religious side, and then hit me and tag me back in and I'll give you my theory.
Okay. So we got the religious side who says he's the bad guy.
Right.
So I think everybody is pretty versed into that.
Okay.
I don't think I need to go too deep into that.
Right.
He's the big villain.
Right.
He's the one that's going to... I don't see that at all.
I don't either.
Lucifer is the false self. Lucifer is the dark side. Said differently, Lucifer is a personification of the ego. So when the reason why he's, I don't know if I'd say bringer of the light, but without light there couldn't be a shadow. And so without light he couldn't be.
Okay.
So you could, so in that sense you could say he's the bringer of light. Okay. But here's the thing, when we're talking about false self, when I talked about earlier about surrendering to your inner master, you circumvent, you're actually going into your true nature when you surrender to the inner master. You're circumventing the false self, and you're going in. When I say false self, I am referring to all the constructs. So we are born into a state of complete surrender. Like you look at, as a baby that comes out of mama's womb, you are surrendered to the impulse of life. And then we have society that comes along that wants to impose our Tower of Babel constructs upon us and say, society says, whether it doesn't matter which one, whether it's religion or non-religion, or your name is this, even identity itself is a construct. It's not fundamentally who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're surrendering to your inner master, there's no shadow self at all. You only have Lucifer and you only have darkness when you're not in a state of surrender to your natural state.
Okay. Are you ready for this one?
All right, let's hear it.
Lucifer was God's favorite. Lucifer was God's right-hand man. Lucifer was cast out of heaven. Do you know what the argument was for him to get cast out of heaven? Do you know this one?
Mm-mm.
No? It was over freedom of will.
He said he would force everybody.
He said that humans were effectively needed a bunch of guidance.
Yeah.
Okay? And what God said is, no, they don't. Basically, to tie this all together, the freedom of will is the freedom to, I'm going to give you the programming. You have the decision to listen to it or not, which is what you're saying. I call it my gut. You're calling it the inner voice. You're calling it the inner master. Same concept there. I believe that, especially if you take a real deep glance into religious symbolism, the bearer of light, the rules, the construct, the Tower of Babel that you just outlined there, I believe that religion, not the Bible, because what did Jesus said, red words. Church is when 2 or 3 people gather and speak in his name. What we are doing right now is church. Okay? He burned down King Solomon's temple 3 times to say that he didn't want big, huge synagogues, churches, stuff like that. Okay? If that's true, and God gave us the programming, the inner master, the gut that I call it, who came up with the rule set for religions? The bearer of light, the symbol of Lucifer, actually is eerily similar to the Statue of Liberty. And this person can be seen throughout churches, throughout state buildings. All the rule set and what Lucifer, the argument that God and him had was that effectively, and I'm going to paraphrase this and butcher it a little bit, but is that Lucifer said that humans didn't have the ability to listen to that inner programming that God gave them, and that they needed firmer rules and guidance on how to live their life. I believe that religion, because all of the problems that I see, and we live in an epidemic of problems in terms of religion here in Salt Lake. I'll let the audience put that one together, okay? The rule set is the problem. The negativity, the beating yourself up, the not fulfilling what they are living up to God's standard. Okay. What is all of that?
I'll use a language. I'm going to use a language to kind of connect connect.
All right, keep going.
So I'll just first say this. With what you described, I just see that as a great story of allegory. I don't see it as literal.
Okay.
It's an allegory of the mind. It's an allegory of consciousness.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the basis of what I heard you say, which is the same basis that I said, is Lucifer wants you to look for things outside of you.
Mm-hmm.
So your potato chips, your video games, your pornography, your prophet, your church are all Luciferian by that definition.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're all trying to say that God is outside of you. Even church's version of God is Luciferian based on that, because they're saying that God is this being outside of you.
Out here.
Out here, instead of recognizing that it's built within the operating system. People say, oh, where's God? Well, God's the subject matter.
Right. He's within.
We're surrounded by divinity.
Right.
I would say that fish were probably not the first ones to discover water.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because you are already in the thick of the environment of it. You see, what psychedelic experiences allow people to do is it has a disruption of the consciousness. It's almost like taking a fish out of the water, or taking fish out of water. And then when you take the fish out of water, they discover they were in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the psychedelic experiences, we're in a sea of consciousness. And the psychedelic experience disturbs the consciousness of our body. And that's why we have the divine experiences. We're surrounded in the divinity.
Mm.
We're in the deific vision, if you will, right now.
I think that, especially when you're talking about psychedelic experiences, that is what it opens up.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of it, you find that it's within you.
Yes. We're not separate from it. And
no.
Animals even know that.
Right.
But us humans, we do the Luciferian approach, which is we look outside of ourselves, which ties back to what I just said. We're born into surrender. We are born, that state of surrender to the impulse of life is what I refer to as the truth state. And so when we're pulled out of it to go look for things incessantly outside of us, is the false self, the ego, or if you want to use a more religious term, the Luciferian.
Yeah.
The Luciferian approach. And so quite literally and also metaphorically, the religions of today, even the most prominent one here, by definition, is a Luciferian church in the name of God.
Yeah.
And that's pretty provocative to say, to say that, because they're effectively taking God outside of you. And when I say you have to have a stronger relationship with truth and stand in your nobility, you need to be able to see that as it is, not as an opinion.
Right.
Like if God is within, why are these dudes saying, go look outside of you? And they're also pointing to you in the direction of the Tower of Babel. They're saying, go find. They're still in the same consciousness construct of the story.
Go to the book
of the Tower of Babel. Go to the book.
Go to the book.
Go to the book. Like I read on one of the famous religions church's website just a few years ago that says, if you want to know God, you need to read the scriptures. So you're effectively saying, read the construct.
Right.
You know what they say in the jungle? I'm going to tell you this story. Drinking ayahuasca is like drinking the Bible. This is what one shaman said. I'm going to paint it to you a different way. So there is this tribe on the Colombian side of the Amazon, and they call ayahuasca yahe.
Okay.
The difference between traditional ayahuasca and yahe is traditional ayahuasca, so ayahuasca is brewed with two plants, the Banisteriopsis capi vine, which is referred to as Aya, which is the MOA inhibitor, and then the Trichruna plant, which is where the DMT, dimethyltryptamine, comes from. They brew it together in water.
Sure.
Well, when the Aya vine when you make ayahuasca, is they crush the bark off the outside of it, and they only brew the inside. Yahe doesn't crush the bark off. They do it with the bark.
Okay.
Okay. It's a much more powerful, bold. It's a far more masculine, feminine experience. It's like they call ayahuasca Mother Ayahuasca.
Mm-hmm.
Yahe, they don't call her agenda one way or the other. It's an incredible balance between the two. There is this legend in the jungle that Christ not only went to the Himalayas and worked with the Indians, with the yogis, he also made his way to the jungle with the natives. And there's this legend that the hair of Christ grew the ayahuasca vine, and the beard of Christ grew the chacruna plant.
Really?
And when you drink yahe or ayahuasca, you are drinking the literal sacrament of Christ. And so all through the jungle for thousands of years, they still serve it in the sacred Maloka, their temple, as a sacrament, and it's a sacramental ritual. And in the Colombian tradition, there's this legend that this sacrament is the sacrament of Christ. And so,
Though, that actually holds water.
it holds water, and it goes
'Cause also,
beyond construct.
Well, and if you wanted to get to know everything that we're saying, to put, plain English on this, where do you actually find God? You're not going to find him in a religious church. You're going to find the book. If you actually wanted to find God, meditating would be closer.
That's really fascinating you mention that. I met as an act of integrity when I officially left the religion. I had a really close relationship with the president or the prophet. And when I left, he said, "I've never found a better way than Mormonism." And he said, "But if you do, will you come tell me?" So as a way of integrity, I called him this last July, just barely.
Really?
And I said, "I found a better way. When can we get together?"
That's bold.
So out of integrity, I made the call, and I was surprised that he took the meeting.
Oh, he did?
Yes.
Oh, I did not think that's where this story was going. Okay.
Yes. So he took the meeting, and I thought that was a pure act of integrity that he did. I'm like, wow, he took the meeting. Not only did he take the meeting, he happened to be in Salt Lake because he doesn't live here. And he said, "Come to my house tomorrow at 4." Like that quick. And I did it on complete intuition. Like, I need to make this call. And he just so happened to be into town. So I went and paid a visit. I paid a visit to him. And I had very similar conversation around this. I told him, I says, I actually recorded the whole thing. So
No way. Seriously?
I recorded the whole meeting. I dressed in my whole shaman outfit and went barefoot.
No way.
The same ceremonial shaman
The
outfit.
all whites, yeah.
The whites with the
With all the embroidery or whatever.
embroidery on it. The colorful the shaman embroidery.
You should see, on a quick side note, Clayne's shaman clothes are legitimately from Peru. They're some of the most beautiful things you'll ever see.
Yeah.
I would love to
All
see it.
handmade. It's spectacular.
Yeah. I'll have to show you. So I went in that outfit,
Okay,
and I brought roses, of course.
naturally.
Roses, that's another thing we talk about. But I told him I found a better way. And I told him about discovery. I said, the better way is discovery. And this is the better way for the world. We live in a world that is deathly afraid of truth.
Mm.
And that's it. The weakness that we see, this is something I said to him. I said, there is no God and there is no priesthood superior to truth. No one, nothing in existence is superior to truth. And when I refer to truth, I refer to the nature of things as it is.
Yeah.
And I circle right back and say, truth is not something you believe, it's something that you discover. And when you discover it, you get to have an opportunity to use it as something nurturing for you in your life. And so I had this conversation with him, and I felt like it went exceptionally well. It was over an hour, the visit. He tried to argue with me on some things. He couldn't argue. There were some things he fundamentally just disagreed with. But you mentioned meditation, and this is why I brought this up. So I said, discover. He says, well, what do you propose we do? I said, it could begin with meditation. And he immediately interrupts me and says, give me one Bible quote of meditation. I'm like, are you serious? There's about 52 of them.
Oh, really?
So I Googled it. And so here is a guy who's the leader of this religion who happens to be God's anointed on the earth at the time to lead the world to the celestial realms. And he didn't know that the Bible teaches meditation.
How do you miss that? Also, that's a different story. Keep going.
Meditation is a way to discover the divinity within you. And he even admitted that he can't hardly stand having his eyes closed. And here's a guy that is overweight and had his soda pop.
Yep.
And it looked like he had just got off his video game when I showed up. I met him at his house in Salt Lake.
Gee whiz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I talked to him about meditation, and then I talked to him about psychedelics and the jungle. And I told him, I said, and I'm happy to come and share this with all your brethren. And he's like, he laughs and says, oh, I'm sure you would.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. My point in sharing this is they don't even have a clue themselves. And I say it respectfully because in their opinion, it's all about shut up and believe.
Mm-hmm.
And the fundamental teachings, even in the Bible of Christ, it says, come follow me.
Right.
Follow me. Follow me is a quest of discovery.
Right.
And if it was just shut up and believe, why would you ever say follow me? You wouldn't need to. It would be shut your damn mouth and listen and believe, you dumbass.
Which is all of the religious teachings.
So that is what's connected all the way back to my voicelessness, the energy of cancer that shuts people down, because the authority in the church becomes superior to truth. And fundamentally it isn't. It's not a concept. Here's something you have to recognize. This is not a concept. This is not a belief. Every living thing in existence, whether it be humans on Earth, aliens in other planets, animals, wherever you find life in the galaxies in existence, will all bow before the altar of truth.
That's powerful stuff. Because effectively what you're saying, and I don't disagree with this at all, truth is actually synonymous with God.
Of course.
Right.
How can creation happen without?
This is what it is.
Yeah. That's real divine.
Hmm.
And so for me to develop my cancer was because the very community that I was born into pulled me away from fundamental truth and wanted me to look at authority as truth. And there's a great mystic from India. I'll quote him. He says, a lie sanctioned by a great authority does not make it true.
Because truth is truth.
Yeah, it's the nature of things as it is. And so the plague that we have in our world right now is the relationship people have with truth itself.
I'm so happy you went there. Your truth. That definition is the epitome of everything that you're talking about. There isn't your truth or my truth or anything like that. There is the truth.
The truth. The truth. Yes. Most people that are peddling this my truth and your truth, on one hand, it could be somebody's understanding of truth. and I do recognize that piece, but I also see that a lot of people disguise it in a fabricated belief. It's nothing more than a belief. Like I have sat in many business meetings where they're talking about expanding your mind and blah, blah, blah. And one of the things that comes up fairly common is limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat in a real estate meeting yesterday. They invited me into their morning little huddle for their little team. And they were discussing limiting beliefs.
Right.
I said, that's not even something you ought to be looking at. I said, you're looking in the wrong direction, because then you're like saying, oh, this belief is bigger than this one, so I'm going to go with that one. I'm like, it's not about that. It's about discovery. It's discover your relationship with truth itself.
Mm.
And here's an example, especially in real estate and mortgage. I'll say this. The truth is you perform better when you're fit.
That is not real estate and mortgage. That's kind of across the board.
Right. And truth will teach you that. And so you have an office of predominantly overweight people trying to perform better. Go to the fucking gym.
Yeah.
Eat better.
How about that? Touch grass.
Yeah.
Drink a glass of water.
Being in the mortgage business, we don't believe your way to qualifying for a loan. You actually have to verify it. If we can't verify it happened, it never happened. If you can, I can't believe you make a certain amount of money. I have to verify it.
Yeah.
Okay. So the mortgage business has a higher level of truth than the standard we have for our own religion. And religion is protected. I mean, this is a good thing in a sense, but it's also a negative as well. It's protected by the First Amendment.
Right.
So religion, there's been churches that have been sued for their veracity. And it's a failing cause because religion doesn't have to prove its authenticity. They don't have to prove their claims because of the First Amendment.
Yeah.
And so the mortgage business has a higher level of veracity than they have a higher standard than religion. Anyway, that's a side note. So I think I think the reason why it's all connected though is it's all connected to the relationship you have with truth.
Well, and it, kind of to prove that point, look at this conversation. Mm-hmm. We have meandered all over the map,
but it's all
connected.
The food, the pharmaceutical, the spirituality, the masculinity, the feminine, it's all connected to this fundamental aspect.
Right.
Truth, your relationship with truth. And so the attack on masculinity is you disconnect masculinity from truth, and you're doing things in the favor of niceness instead of what's noble. It might be noble to go punch somebody in the face.
There are times for that.
It might be noble to pull out a chair for a pretty little girl.
Yes.
And you've got to know which one is the noble act to do and be willing to act on it regardless. Those are two things that men fear.
Which is kind of funny because if you buy into this, okay, and you start acting on it, mm-hmm. I promise your mental hangups are going to go away too.
Yeah.
Suddenly the world just kind of orders right up and lines up for you.
Well, let's talk about mental health for a man, for example.
Okay.
We already touched on it. If a man gets his proper rest, his sleep cycles, uh-huh. nutrition, water, he goes to the gym, do all that with a heart of gratitude, you'll naturally make more money.
You're naturally going to do everything a little bit better.
And in today's world, money there's a lot of, and this might be very controversial to say, but for a man, money can shield you from a lot of things. Mm-hmm. It can be, not only do you provide and protect, money can help your protection. It can determine what neighborhood you're buying your house in. I
view money as like it's really just the trophy of your work.
Yeah.
Right. It's not real. It's not it's a number on a screen.
It's a construct in the same sense that your measuring tape is a construct.
Right. Right.
It's a measurement of value.
Value that you bring to society.
Yeah. There's a lot of people I've discovered in the spiritual community that have a very bad relationship with money. And I think it's worth noting. Money they discover that it's an illusion. And I like to say it's an illusion, just like my lawnmower is an illusion.
Right.
It's a tool.
Right.
And so is my measuring tape. And so just because you found out that tools are wonderful constructs for useful things, they're awful masters. And so we're using the Tower of Babel of language as a master to know God. And this story teaches us that towers could probably be a good tool for something, unless you drive an airplane into them or blow them up with bombs.
Yeah. That's a different story for a different day, but yes.
Right. So they're tools.
Money is just a tool.
Money is
that's
a tool.
all it
It's
is.
a measurement of the value that you're given to the marketplace.
Right. But also when you go to care about your family and you want to do good in the world, it is a tool to do just that.
Yeah. I see it also. When I say it's a masculine expression, I'm not saying that women can't make money, because they can too. But I still say it's a masculine expression of it. And even if a woman's making money, that's still a masculine part of herself, and that doesn't make her bad or wrong or whatnot. It's just that's what it is.
I think we should, as a disclaimer, say that everybody, man or woman, you have a divine feminine side. Absolutely. And you have a divine masculine side.
I would. That's not even a concept; it's a reality.
Right.
And to really have a good relationship with the feminine outside of you as a man, you have to have a really good relationship with the feminine inside of you. Mm-hmm. You've got to protect your feminine inside of you. You got to be there for the feminine inside of you. And when you're not that for a man, as a man, how are you going to do that for a woman?
You can't.
I know.
You can't. Also,
how you are inside is how you are outside.
That ties directly to masculinity. Mm-hmm. Real strong protection, duty, honor. Mm-hmm. You're going to protect the feminine inside of you.
Yeah.
No different than you would somebody outside of you.
I can tell you what, if you find yourself in a precarious situation, a woman is going to be damn happy she has a strong man next to her side.
Absolutely.
Not some fat ass that just got off a video game.
Well, take that one step further. To be a good divine masculine man, you bring a lot to the table. You are constantly honing yourself. Like my catchphrase on this is, I have a divine imperative to be capable in every realm of the human endeavor.
Here's something else. If a man is standing in that, and he has a great relationship with truth, he's going to have a lot less conflict with the feminine as well, because she'll bring some things to his attention that he'll appreciate. Mm-hmm. Because he has his relationship with truth. Mm-hmm. And because he has such a strong relationship with truth, he'll be able to receive that. And if she is off, he'll be able to say, sweetheart,
stop.
You have a relationship, because of his relationship with truth, well, he'll be able to know if it's something to say or just go to bed that night and talk to about it the next morning. And wisdom teaches you that.
Yeah, that's a whole different skill set. But
yeah. So
that is some powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. What else would you like to cover?
Dude, you know how this is. Or what? Hour and a half in, it feels like it's been 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, we could. Yeah. So
Clayne, I really want to thank you. Truly.
Absolutely.
This is always such a treat. I would love to have you more on regularly. We're going to have a handful of people that come on a periodic basis, and I would love for you to be one of those guys.
Yeah, I would love to.
I really appreciate you coming out. This has been a lot of fun. Aiden, did you have fun tonight?
Yes, it's been great.
I told you.
I've loved listening to this conversation.
She's been sitting there in silence. I saw some of her eyes go big.
I told her I was going to introduce her to some very interesting people. I'm so happy that her first try at this was with you.
Awesome.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you, Clayne.
Thank you.